my name is Heather Grant, and I'm from the Modern Quilt Guild, and I'm so excited to bring you this season of Fresh Quilting. As modern quilters, we're so inspired by using so many wonderful traditional quilting techniques in modern quilting. We have been so heavily influenced by art quilting, Amish quilting, graphic design, the quilters of Gee's Bend, Nancy Crow, Gwen Marsden, Yoshiko Genzi, and many artists in the modern and postmodern movements of architecture, interior design, and art. Modern quilting rose to popularity because of the internet. It connected us in ways we were never connected before. Social media online allow us to share images on the internet and give us the chance to find each other. It also started to really bring together a changing fabric industry that brought us exciting fabric that was fresh and modern and bright. As quilters, the well-loved quilt is something we all know. Modern quilters make quilts that are made to be used. Form and function go hand in hand. We use traditional quilting techniques that have a slightly different approach to design. The spectrum of modern quilting is broad, but it starts from our foundations. There are always many different ways in interpretation. In this show, we'll learn many traditional techniques, but we'll also approach modern quilting design like a salad bar. When you make a salad, sometimes you want a little bit of salt, a little bit of crunch, and maybe a little bit of cheese. But the salad bar has a lot more than that. You don't pile it all on your plate. Designing modern quilts has the same idea. You take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and you have a perfect salad, or in this case, modern quilt. Some of these design elements include alternate grid work, use of negative space, asymmetry, exaggerated scale, no borders, minimalism, bright and graphic color palettes, improvisational piecing, and modern traditionalism. I have never seen a modern quilt without at least one of these modern quilting elements. Alternate grid work is the concept of using traditional columns and rows that are common in traditional quilts, but changing it up a little. They can still follow that kind of traditional grid structure. For example, color can be used in an unpredictable orientation, or the orientation of the blocks can change to make it more modern. Asymmetry is when the focal point of a quilt is off-center or doesn't match on both sides. Block-based quilts are quilts that have a similar block throughout. Modern quilters really love to explore non-block-based quilts. They don't have a repeating block pattern. Some of these ideas also exist in traditional quilts, like Hawaiian quilts or medallion quilts. Graphic colors are also something that modern quilters use. The combination of colors and where they're placed can modify traditional designs into modern quilts. Color is less important if other modern quilting design elements are strong. Cropping is a technique that you can think of from the photographic world, where you take a block or a focal point and cut it off from the edge to end the motif. Improv is a common tool used by modern quilters. Putting fabric together without following a pattern, it's more like a recipe in your head rather than reading it from a cookbook. And your rules of construction are thrown out of the window, and scraps are combined to create an organic movement to the quilt. The great thing about these is that these improv piece sections can then be recut and combined with more precise piecing to really bring more order into improv quilts. If you're just dabbling with modern quilting to start, improv quilts are a great place to start. Minimalism is also a very common modern quilting technique. Often, the more negative space a quilt has, the more minimal the quilt becomes. Minimalism can also distill down the most basic parts of quilt construction into their fundamental aspects. Modern traditionalism is really inspirational for all quilters. It's a great way to update a traditional quilt blocker layout with modern quilting elements like scale, negative space, color, or alternate grid work. You can take all these different modern quilt design elements and apply them to a quilt to create a really restrained but highly impactful design. Negative space is this big space between quilt elements or focal points that modern quilters often use to draw focus to other areas of a quilt. Expansive negative space is really common, but it also helps organize the subject and capture attention. Many modern quilts, but not all, there are always exceptions, often have no borders. But borders are common with modern quilts if it's a way to bring the negative space out to the edge of the quilt. Modern quilters also use scale, both increasing and decreasing the size of a classic quilt block. You can take a very traditional quilt block and make it in a number of different sizes, such as small, large, or even jumbo, and then combine them into one quilt with alternate gridwork to make a very different yet exciting quilt. Modern quilters aren't unique in what we do. We're not anything new either. But by getting inspiration from our traditional quilt makers and the rich history that we have, together we can both be inspired. I hope this show can show you some really great traditional techniques that you can use in your traditional quilt, your art quilt, or your modern quilt, and also give you design inspiration that you can apply in all of your quilting.